it can be such a fertile training ground because, the feminine woman that you care a lot about will have the ability, without trying, to trigger all of your worst insecurities. And so if you can stay in that relationship with the right mindset, like you can accomplish a lot of very healthy work for yourself by just having her there and reacting, and even in ways that she doesn't know, seeing your insecurities and reacting to them can give you the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to leave all this anxiety behind and just turn myself into a deeply grounded person. Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast. This is Charles. In today's episode, Dan and I dive into the essential dynamics of a healthy relationship by first examining the foundational role of masculinity and its commitment to hold space and provide safety, and how a failure to do so forces a woman to overfunction in ways that often don't feel natural or comfortable. We then pivot to the concept of polarity, emphasizing that the essential spark of romantic vitality thrives on the natural differences between partners, not their similarities. Finally, we explore two critical ideas: the feminine role of oracle, where a woman's behavior, often misidentified as acting out, is actually an indirect message reflecting her partner's internal drift or laziness, and the core truth that nearly all non-masculine behavior in a man is primarily rooted in a fundamental sense of anxiety or threat, with the ultimate solution being the inner work required to cultivate a centered belief in one's own resilience. If you want to go deeper into these ideas or catch any past episodes, audio or video, visit mindfullymasculine.com. Thanks and enjoy.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great.
You went to a music festival recently.
I did.
You enjoy those.
Usually. Yeah.
So tell me about the Electronic Daisy. Electronic or electric?
Well,
it is electronic. Okay.
yeah.
All right. And,
Electronic.
So not a trombone to be found in the whole place.
There was so much stuff there. There could have been. I'm sure there was some sort of marching. Actually,
Marching band?
there was a marching band walking through. The first day we got there, we actually did pass by a marching band, and I'm pretty sure I heard some trombone. So I'm sure there was actually some trombone there
for everybody.
So maybe you'll go next year.
Except people who
hate trombones. It's a completely different experience during the day than it is at night.
Yeah.
So I love it during the day. It's basically like a big amusement park for adults where it's not overly crowded. The weather's beautiful. The music isn't as intense. And there's so much color and, I guess, happy people walking around. It's nice. Yeah, it's a good time. And I mean, it helps. I get to go with a bunch of friends, everybody's into it, and everybody brings a little surprise for the group, whether it's something that, lights up or light up scrunchies or wristbands or snacks or food or whatever. It's a good time. It's a good time. And I really connected well with a lot of people over the weekend and stuff. It was nice.
I am happy that I could contribute to the joy of everyone who attended by not being there.
Yeah. You're probably one of the few people who weren't there. It was crazy crowded.
Was it?
Absolutely.
But you said not during the day.
Not during the day. No, people are still rolling in, till, late at night.
Yeah.
They're still going through the grades and stuff like that.
Rolling's an interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of people rolling, lots of people drunk, lots of people high.
Yeah, sure.
But the cool thing is everybody's there for security and safety. So there's nobody's getting like pinned to the ground because somebody saw somebody do something that was, illegal or whatever, right? It's more like, hey, what do you need? How can you help? Kind of thing.
That's good.
And so there was an incident on Sunday where a guy was just a little out of control when it came to his alcohol consumption and his interaction with other people.
Okay.
That required a little bit of security from the guys around. So one of the things that is a good rule of thumb is you probably want to go, if you're a lady, you want to go with a guy, or a few ladies want to go with a couple of guys that can really, it's not like a real scary place or anything, but there's people who just drink too much or do too many drugs or whatever and get out of control. Worst case scenario, so that a woman can kind of staying her feminine and relax and enjoy the experience. It's good to have guys who are there who can kind of hold space and some safety and security, and just kind of keep an eye out for some, some crazy people or people who are a little too friendly, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunate that that has to be the case, but we take the world as it is, not just as we wish it would be.
And it's interesting because I didn't even think about that until, we were going through this book, and at the festival, we were with a couple of my girlfriend's friends who were also girls. They didn't have guys with them. And what happened was my girlfriend didn't have a good time because she had to be staying in her masculine, looking out for the younger people,
Interesting.
the younger women who really, it was like their first time. They weren't sure about where things are. And it does get a little crazy at night. And so I just kind of putting it together. She has an amazing time with me, but I'm the one kind of looking out for her. And really, at those festivals, one guy usually is not enough for like multiple women to kind of
Yeah.
take a care of and always be looking and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting. We all kind of put together like, hey, listen, it's great that you went this year. If you want to go next year, find somebody who can kind of take care of you. You use the buddy system. And so this one person's buddy left. And because that person's buddy left, that responsibility then fell on my girlfriend. And so she couldn't relax. She couldn't have a good time. And so it was an interesting reflection of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here in the book, actually. So
Yeah, and I imagine, also for being the managing that ratio as a guy is probably important too, where, if it's just you and your girlfriend or you and your girlfriend and her one friend, maybe it's easy for you to enjoy yourself and kind of keep your situational awareness. But once the group gets too big
exactly.
and you feel like, okay, I'm responsible for keeping an eye on everybody being safe, then I'm sure at some point, and whatever that number is probably going to be, different based on the guy's temperament, his experiences in life and all that stuff. For some, it might just be, look, I'm happy to keep an eye out to make sure my girlfriend's okay, but you add another person in the mix and now I feel like I'm here doing a job instead of enjoying myself.
Yeah, especially when the dynamic changes, you're going into it knowing, okay, everybody's got a buddy, right? So it's taken care of. And then if it changes, all of a sudden the buddy leaves or, something, now it's like thrown on other people. That's something that kind of,
Yeah, it's kind of,
have to deal with. It can be a little unfortunate. The nice thing is, for the most part, 95% of the people there are thoughtful and caring and, looking out for each other. And they're really engaging with, they'll talk, hey, are you okay? And people are pretty good about taking care of each other, but, you can't rely on that, right? That's
No,
like a bonus.
it only takes one bad actor to potentially do something to you that ruins your life. So, yeah, just having to think about stuff like that, if anything is a privilege to being born a man, it's just,
well,
I remember.
Yes and no, because like you said, when I went, I had a good time, but I couldn't have a complete, like, so if it was just me and a bunch of guys, like, it would have been a lot easier for all of
But
us
that's still a choice
to be able to relax. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
be with 10 girls and be like,
Yeah.
fuck it, you guys are on your own.
Right.
I'm going to have a good time. Hope nobody messes with you. I mean, you have that option of making that decision.
Yeah. I know.
Look, there are guys that make that decision every day, and they can, and nobody, society's not telling them you're going to jail because you didn't take on the role of protector for these women you were with.
No, I just can't. I can't. You and I can't operate that way.
I wouldn't either. I would feel a sense of responsibility of, I gotta do something to keep the people that I care about safe.
Yeah.
But again, you do have the option to say, well, I don't really care about them that much, so it's not my job to keep them safe.
Yeah.
Where a girl doesn't get to go to something like that and just say, I'll just zone out, not pay attention to what's going on around me, and make it somebody else's problem. It's like, no, it's always going to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's going to be their problem to worry about their safety and security.
Yeah.
I remember when I was the last time I went to New York City, I was staying in Brooklyn, and my plan was to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, go back into Manhattan, do some shopping and stuff. And I looked on my Google Maps to see from where I'm staying right now, how do I get to the Brooklyn Bridge? And I saw it on the map, and I saw there were a lot of big, like, project buildings essentially. And so I saw a couple of cops standing there, and I was like, hey, I'm planning on walking over the Brooklyn Bridge, and it says I go through this street. Any issue with that? They're like, yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And I was like, okay, good to know. And I did it anyway, and I was fine. Because I was like,
Yeah.
listen,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the Charles is walking around New York face on,
Yeah.
and I'm just look straight ahead. I'm not looking at I'm not looking at any of the landmarks. I'm just like kind of pissed off, walking fast. Nope. I mean, there were plenty of people just kind of hanging out outside, talking, laughing.
Yeah.
People not like me, and nobody gave me a second look or talked to me or anything. I just
Yeah.
put my head down, walked straight through it, and again, I'm a mid everything white guy in his mid 40s,
Yeah.
and the world's a safe place for me. Now, there are obviously some bad decisions I could make where it's like, okay, you put yourself in a place where you really shouldn't be, and now you're going to have to pay the price for it. But the number of those places for me is a lot lower than the number of places for other people
Mm-hmm.
who were
Yeah.
born with, different characteristics than I was born with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't want to go to a music festival and I don't have to worry about half the stuff that other people may have to worry about. And it's still like, ugh. I mean, you and I were talking about going to see Jack Johnson. I was like, I like Jack Johnson. That's a concert I might want to go to. And then I look it up and it's outdoors in Florida in August. And I'm like, you know what? Never mind, Dan. Forget I brought it up. That's too much. I don't like music.
I'm taking a vacation from outdoors in August.
I don't like music enough to see anybody outdoors in Florida in August. And sometimes I wish I wasn't that way. I wish I could just snap my fingers and I could be into the same thing that so many other people are into and get the same joy out of it that so many. But it's like, okay, I may find opportunities where I can stretch a little, but being the person, like I've got friends that would go to a concert every weekend if they could afford to because they love it that much.
Yeah.
And I'm just never going to be that.
But there's things that you're into that other people aren't, right?
That I'm into that other people are saying, boy, I wish I was into that like Charles is into it.
What about like, movie culture and like,
nobody said I wish I was into pop culture like Charles is, but I just can't make myself do it. You could just sit your ass on the couch and watch more TV.
yeah, but I think people like for myself, I sometimes will say things like, not like, oh, I wish I was like Charles and more into pop culture, but it's more like, I really feel like I'm living in a cave because I know nothing about pop culture kind of thing. Right. So
that's true.
So I a flavor of that. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I wish I enjoyed it more to where I would seek it out.
Yeah.
Because I feel like left out of conversations sometimes because I don't know, people will be like 6'7". I'd be like, what? And I spend way too much time trying to research and figure out what it means. Right. Like
I asked, all right, chapter 7 in the masculine and relationship focuses on polarity, which we've already alluded to a bit already. There was some really interesting stuff in this chapter that helped me to think of the sort of traditional male-female dynamics in ways that I had not thought of it before. Particularly the role of the feminine as oracle, I found extremely interesting. And this idea that, one of the sort of base concepts to polarity is you are with a romantic partner not because of the ways that you are similar, but because of the ways that you are different. And as part of that, if you try to apply standards to the woman that is your partner of, here are the things that I strive to be as an ideal man. Now the woman who's my partner, boy, she better act this way or else. It's like, it's ridiculous to try to apply those standards to traditionally feminine partner and then be disappointed when she doesn't meet those standards. And I've made a few notes of what some of those standards are of rationality or control or even sort of like linear thinking and things like that, where,
logic
in a way, like sort of the idealized version of logic that you like to think you have, or the logic that you think you should approach life with. Because we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, where, this idea of men are rational and women are irrational, men are logical, women are illogical. It's like, no, that's not real life. What real life is, and the way at least I've explained it before, is when it comes to times of stress or pressure, what do men versus women look to as their safety blanket? Men tend to look to logic as their safety blanket, and women tend to look to connection as their safety blankets. When you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling stressed, what is it that makes you more comfortable in a touchy situation? And for me, yes, that is logic. If I can feel like I've got a good understanding of the nuts and bolts of what's happening right now, then I'll feel safer and more comfortable. And I think most of the women I've been with, at least, would say, if I'm in a stressful situation, if I can figure out a way to feel more connected to the people I'm going through it with, then I'll feel safe.
And what's interesting is when the problem comes in when we both try to, from a feminine or masculine, try to use our own communication, like native communication language of what makes us feel comfortable, whether it's emotions or logic, and try to like communicate with that. That's where I feel sometimes we have some problems where we're applying logic to emotional situation they may be feeling, or vice versa.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where some translation needs to happen. It doesn't easily translate from one side to the other. And I think that's where I run into problems in the past, is trying to apply logic to emotional situations. And by doing that, I feel like I'm also shutting down the other person instead of allowing those emotions to flow.
Yeah, I certainly been in those situations before, and dealt with the aftermath of trying to fit somebody else's communication into, sometimes you'll see somebody struggling with a foreign language or in a foreign place, and the idea of, well, if I speak faster and louder, then they'll understand me. It's like, that's not, no, that doesn't help. That doesn't make you easier to understand. So trying to double down on the logic that you're trying to bring to the conversation when all she's looking for is connection is not going to make your side or your point easier to understand. It's going to make it harder. So anyway, I like this idea, and I did quite a bit of thinking about it. The idea of the feminine as oracle, which is to say, listen, as we've said on this show before, and in many of the books that we have, particularly the ones written from a man's perspective, has said about, it's the healthy, grounded man's job or mission in life is not to please the people around him. It's not to keep everybody happy. We're called to higher purposes than just getting along with everybody. And those purposes can be lots of different things. Or it could be, I want to excel in my field because then I'll make the world a better place. I want to be a source of, political change that makes the world a more fair, just place for everyone. Whatever the big thing is that you're passionate about and that you're trying to accomplish, to have an oracle at your side who sort of naturally, just by the way that she exists, is able to say, hey, here's how you're actually showing up. Not how you think you're showing up, not how you want to show up, but based on how I'm reacting to you, this is going to teach you how you're really showing up in the world. And being able to use that as a source of information instead of, she's judging me, she's nagging me, she's making me feel less than. It's like, I've never thought of that before, but every time that you're experiencing conflict with the woman in your life, it's because she's telling you something about the way you're showing up.
So explain a little bit more about, if you can kind of round out the definition of oracle that you're talking about here, so people can kind of like zero in. You started to a little bit there in terms of her being able to give us some insight into things. That's one of the ways I think about the term oracle. But what else for you?
Some of the language that I highlighted from this chapter about it was that the way she reflects your mindset, your behavior, she will expose any drift, any ego, any laziness that you might not see on your own. And so, for example, if she is uncomfortable about stuff, promises you're making to get stuff done around the house that you're just not getting done on a recurring basis, and that starts to stress her out, that starts to cause her to nag you or be upset with you or do what you feel is nitpicking, what that's really saying is, listen, you're not showing up as the dependable person that you either sold yourself to be or that deep down you want to be. You're not getting that done right now. And so she's reacting to that. So yeah, the idea of the feminine as an instructive partner that can say, listen, you're not bringing to the table what you want to be bringing to the table right now, and that's making me act out in ways that are pointing that out to you, but it's all indirect, and it's our job to understand that and be able to see it for what it is.
I think it's important to also come in with the intention and the understanding that the woman that you're with loves you and wants the best for you and isn't being oversensitive and isn't nitpicking and isn't coming from that.
Assuming you have done the work on yourself to have a good picker.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. So that being said, is even if you have this impression, that she's being oversensitive and she is nitpicking, most likely she's still serving an oracle purpose, because there is some truth to that. It may not be the level of, that she's expressing to you or that you're interpreting it, right? It might not be that bad or as severe, but don't dismiss the fact that you're receiving some good information about yourself from your woman, that you should value and look at. Hey, it's an opportunity to look at it a little bit deeper, and it may not be at the level that she's expressing, but there's still some truth to that, right?
Yeah, because
so don't dismiss it and just she's just
for
being
sure.
like, she's not an oracle, she's just being oversensitive, whatever. Most likely she's with you because she there is some level of care there, and she's not going to be pulling stuff out of nowhere to torture you. Are empathetic, kind people.
Nobody chooses to live with someone and spend all their time with someone just because they want to put them through the ringer. Like that just doesn't happen. So you guys are together for a reason, and she is, if what she's doing you perceive as acting out in some way, there's a reason for that too. There's a need that is not being met, and people struggle to vocalize their needs, and people struggle to ask for their needs to be met. And so just assume that this person you care about has a legitimate reason for being the way that they are right now, and that there's a lesson there for you to learn. And that really is what so much of this book is about, which is to say, whatever difficult times you're facing or you're going through, there's a lesson for you to learn about making yourself just a more effective navigator through life. But that starts with saying, okay, what is going on right now that I might not understand? What is happening that I may not have all the information on or all the details on? What do I need to ask myself? What do I need to look at myself and figure out, okay, how did I bring this situation about, and what can I do about it to make it better? Because again, if your first thing is to go to, she needs to do this, she needs to do that so that my life is easier, well, good luck. I mean, I don't know anybody whose life has gotten better that way, because they're like, I complained for years and years, and finally this person did exactly what I was hoping they would. That it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. This chapter is talking about polarity, and that is really a blessing when she is communicating with you, because she's telling you you're not being as polar as you should be, right? You're not being as masculine as you should be. That's where that's coming from. And it is not exactly going to be a clear message. Oh, you're not being masculine enough because you didn't, fix the plumbing entirely, kind of thing, right? Like, or whatever it was. It's going to come out in other ways, but it's her way of letting you know that you're not being in your masculine.
Yes.
So that way, so she can be more in her feminine. So the more you are in your masculine, the more that allows her to not have to take care of business.
Right, exactly.
And allows her to relax and stay in her feminine.
So much.
That polarity is important.
And so much of it is, either expressly or covertly. At the beginning of this relationship, we set up the roles that we planned to play and the roles that we expected from each other. And so much of the time in the relationship stress that I've experienced, it has been, hey, Charles isn't showing up in the role that he sold and that he was comfortable with at the beginning of the relationship. And so now she's having to act out in a role that she's not comfortable with either. And now we're going to have some conflict. I'm not delivering on the promises I made, again, either expressly or covertly. And now she feels like, okay, well, I'm not getting this dependability and safety and whatever from him. So now I've got to do more. And that is a source of discomfort for me. So now I've got to act that out in some sort of a way to communicate, hey, this doesn't feel good right now, and it needs to get back to the way that it was, or we need to find a new path forward or something. Because when you break that contract of I'll be the man, you'll be the woman, I'll be the masculine, you'll be the feminine, I'll be the provider, you'll be the manager of the household, whatever each individual relationship has set up as this is what our agreeing will work for the two of us. And it can be anything. And it can be, the man could take on the role of the feminine, the woman could take on the role of the masculine. But as long as you guys are both on the same page with that, you've got to then maintain that up until the point where you actively vocalize, hey, this dynamic needs to change. But if the dynamic changes just because of laziness or comfort or trauma activation or whatever, if it kind of just under the surface starts to change, then one partner is going to be like, whoa, something's not the way, this isn't what I signed up for. Now I have some strong feelings about it.
Yeah. And this is all too common in new relationships, right? People are putting their best foot forward, right? So the guy might be planning a date, might be taking her out to really expensive dinners. So showing that provider role, showing that leader role. And then when they're, finally get a commitment, he backs off on that. Right. And now all of a sudden you basically sold her a bill of goods that it doesn't exist. Right. And so that's where in the past, I've screwed up relationships that way. I put way too much, effort and emphasis up at the beginning, and I didn't maintain even a modicum of that. Not that we're asking for the same level of, amazing dates and everything else like that. But it was just like I completely got lazy and backed off on it, and I basically then facilitated discussions and arguments, and I didn't know what was actually going on under the surface, and it ruined relationships for me.
Yeah, I've never gotten a first date by playing the, I don't know, what do you want to do game? The what do you want to eat game?
No.
That's not how you get first dates.
No, but a lot of times in the relationship, yeah. What do you want for dinner?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Hey, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want that. Yeah. And not offering alternatives. Like, I think both halves of the relationship can fall into those patterns, and it's just so boring and non-committal, and just there's, that's a lack of masculine or feminine energy. It's just like we've turned into roommates or buddies now that can't make up our mind about what to eat for dinner. And it's like nobody signed up for that at the beginning.
And that's the thing, is what you're also expressing is that you are not giving any energy into the person that you care about the most. And maybe for whatever reason, that energy has been sapped from other things going on in your world. Like, a crazy busy week at work, taking care of the kids, parents, whatever that is. And unfortunately, though, you've then left with nothing left for the most important person, or almost the most important person in your life. And what is that you're communicating to them that they're not as important.
Right. And that's where Esther Perel's spoken so much with her work on this idea of, we want safety and security, but we also want variety and excitement. And how do you keep both of those going in a relationship? And very few people, from what I can see, seem to be able to do it.
Because that takes work, that takes effort.
Yeah. It's like,
it can be done, but
yes, but it's like another job that you have. Like this is at least a part-time, if not a full-time job.
I mean, it helps me knowing that it's going to take effort, right? Going in with the intention to expect that it's going to take some effort. It's going to take work, and you will get tired from it. Yeah, it's going to happen, but
yeah,
it's worth it. In the end, it's worth
staying healthy, staying in shape. It's like, yeah,
choose your hard, right?
Yeah, at the beginning, like, this isn't going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. All right, the next chapter is kind of short, where he gets into threat, and I like this statement. Nearly all non-masculine behaviors are rooted in one thing: threat. The body senses danger and reacts instead of responding. And I would say that's certainly true in my life. Like, all the times where I've dropped the ball as the masculine role in a relationship, it's because I was scared of something, and I didn't know I was scared of something, but I was reacting to something I was afraid of that I didn't even know I was reacting to. And that could be, I'm afraid of feeling less than, I'm afraid of being abandoned, I'm afraid of, being seen as, a fraud, whatever it is. Like, I'm afraid of something. And so now I'm reacting to just a little thing that happens with all this extra baggage of my fear.
It hadn't been expressed before, so it kind of built up and grew.
Exactly.
Compounded interest.
Yeah. And so, every criticism is oh no, she's going to leave me, or every criticism that Charles isn't good enough. And it's like, the only way to deal with that is to, do that intense inner work where you're like, okay, no matter what happens, even in the case of a worst case scenario, I'll be okay, I'll survive it, and I'll live to fight another day. And you've got to actually believe that so that you can respond to threats instead of reacting to them. Like, instead of letting that, whether you want to call it the inner child or the lizard brain or whatever, the part of you that is like, I gotta grab the wheel and take over because we might die. And in most cases, dying is not an actual legitimate threat, but that's what the part of your brain that's job is to keep you alive long enough to reproduce. It has to blow out, it has to encourage that hypervigilance. So everything is life threatening. We have to address everything. Everything could potentially be the thing that does us in. And the mammals that thought that way were the ones that stayed alive.
Yeah, he breaks down the entire emotional chain reaction in the chapter here. So you perceive a threat, whether it's real or imagined. Your nervous system fires. You leave your masculine center. She feels disconnected instantly, which causes her intensity to increase. You get even more threatened,
Right.
and then the cycle continues, and it just spirals into chaos and just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I've lived through that so many times. And what can you do about that? Well, you gotta figure out that you're in the middle of it, and
Awareness, yeah.
you gotta have some sort of an exit ramp where you can say, all right, I feel like I'm getting in there, and it's not her job to get me off this. It's my job to figure out what can I do to derail this before it turns into a train crash.
Yeah, I mean, for me, sometimes it helps to think, you can't not feel the feeling. It's very difficult to not get that, the physical feeling. What helps me sometimes is then thinking, okay, what other information am I missing? What other information could be here that is not part of what made me feel this way? And so at that point, then at least it gives me a chance to pause and think, okay, maybe there's something else I can look for here that might be helpful, that might help me understand a little bit more. And by doing that, it's going to make me feel better. So I'm linking me feeling better to getting more information. And so now I'm starting to get into a habit where I don't feel good. First thing that I do is, or one of them, not the first thing always, but one of the first things I do is look for more information. Okay, what else is going on? Where else, can I get some insight here? And usually that does at least slow down my physical reaction, and it brings me a little bit of peace. And then from there, I can then, keep looking for more information and more interpretations. And if an ideal situation, I've got the time then to process it. It's not always the case, but.
And and it can be such a fertile training ground because, the feminine woman that you care a lot about will have the ability, without trying, to trigger all of your worst insecurities. And so if you can stay in that relationship with the right mindset, like, you can accomplish a lot of very healthy work for yourself by just having her there and reacting, and even in ways that she doesn't know, seeing your insecurities and reacting to them can give you the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to leave all this anxiety behind and just turn myself into a deeply grounded person. Is testing your nervous system for capacity, not for compliance.
That's a great way of thinking about it.
Yes, she is, again, unconsciously, inadvertently, she is testing to see, what are you capable of delivering on? Not, will he go along with what I need him to do? Not can I control him into being what I need, but does he have the ability to deliver on what I need him to deliver on when it's important for him to deliver it?
Yeah.
And she's going to, again, because choosing the wrong man is throughout all of human history, and even throughout part of mammalian history, choosing the wrong mate is the most expensive, incorrect decision that the female of whatever species is able to make.
A lot of times that situation, I think, to the male brain is very counterintuitive, right? It's, this person is, the person that is most important to me. She wants something. For me, my default is automatically, I got to give her what she wants. Not, I need to resist her or be able to handle my emotions in this situation that she's upset about. so that I can also display to her that I can handle my emotions in a situation that is outside of the relationship, or doesn't have anything to do with her. My brain goes, well, they're not as important, right? So I don't need to worry about pleasing them, right? So I don't need to be compliant. I don't need to practice being, I need to practice being compliant and to her, because she's the most important, right? And not not show, I'm sorry, what did you say? It's not compliance, but capacity. I don't need to show capacity here, because it's going to be easy for me to show the capacity to somebody I don't care about.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But that's not what she, but that's the thing in your own mind, that it's clear, but that's not what she believes. That's not the page that she's on. She needs to be shown. She's not seeing that. She needs to see you have that capacity, right?
And that is, I mean, you hit on a fairly specific example of one of the things that effective people, and in this context, effective men, can do, is to say to somebody, I either can't or won't give you the thing that you're asking for right now. And here are my legitimate reasons for not giving you the thing you're asking for right now. And have the person that's being denied leave the conversation feeling safer than they were going into it. And that is a skill that you see rarely. I mean, I've seen it sometimes in my both personal and professional life, where somebody's been able to say, no, we're not going to do the thing that you're asking to have done right now. And here's why we're not going to. And then seeing somebody leave the conversation feeling better about being denied what they thought they needed, or what they thought they wanted.
Yeah.
And it's not a manipulation. If you try to do it through manipulation, it'll become clear of, okay, you're just coming up with excuses why you're not going to do what I want you to do. It's like, no, we're not. But being able to honestly say and directly say, no, I'm not going to give into this request right now, and here's why. And no amount of trying to convince me or cajole me or guilt me is going to change it, because I believe in my reasons.
Yeah.
And then look, if you make the wrong call consistently over and over again, you're like, I'm not going to meet your need, and you do it for the wrong reason, then eventually, she'll find somebody who will meet that need. But if you have to do it occasionally and you have a legitimate reason that you can explain and stick to, then that will make you a better partner, not a worse partner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're also kind of vetting a little bit the relationship too, because if that's not acceptable to her, then you might need to reevaluate, are you with the right person?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If somebody asks you to do something that goes counter to your values, and when you explain, hey, I can't accommodate that request right now, because if I did, it would lead to these other things that I'm not willing to do, then your partner should be willing and able to hear that on a limited basis when it's actually true and actually important. You don't just say no for the sake of saying no because you want to test them and see how they react to it. It's like, no, this is, if you're not willing to plant your flag on any hill, then you're going to be out of hills real quick. So in chapter 9, which is all about emotions, it basically makes the case that you need to get to know your emotions and be able to identify what you're experiencing in the moment or very close to the moment. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in this program of reactivity to everything. And, again, whether you call it your inner child or your inner grown-up or the lizard brain or the monkey brain, or however you want to say it, there's a part of you that wants to just react to things in the moment as they happen. And there's a part of you that is able to say, no, I can delay my response to something until I understand more about it. And, we're able to come together and build civilizations on the idea of, I don't have to react to everything in the moment. I can pause, I can take a minute, I can understand more about what's happening, and I can make the right decision. And, when it comes to relationships, that right decision is, okay, what is my trauma history? What is my childhood? What is my long list of unmet needs telling me I have to do instantly to make myself feel better? Or what are my deeply held core values telling me is the best move going forward to get myself where I want to be? And, it really it comes down to, how do I train myself to get into that slower thinking instead of the fast thinking?
Yeah, I think it starts with lowering your overall stress level so that you have the capacity you've got that bandwidth there when you are triggered for whatever that is. You've got a little bit of a cup some room in your cup to handle that. right? Whereas, so a lot of that I think really comes down to managing your daily stress levels and making sure that you're doing things that are fun and enjoyable for you. You're getting time to relax, and you're not just pushing and pushing and pushing, which so many of us do.
Yeah, I was thinking of an acquaintance of mine that I knew several years ago. We were never close friends, but we were friendly, and we would occasionally be together in a party or in a, sort of the meeting after the meeting where you go out for a couple drinks after, hanging out for work purposes or whatever. And this guy would tend to consume a little bit too much alcohol, and he would get very huggy and very weepy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I've known a few guys like that,
Yeah.
where it's like, I have no emotions until I've had 5 or 6 beers in me, and then I want to hug everybody and I want to cry a lot.
Uh,
I had the thought years ago where I was like, hey, I never told him this because we weren't close enough, but it's like, buddy, if you ever get tired of crying every time you've had a few too many drinks, you could just cry once or twice in a therapist's office about what's actually bothering you, and then you won't have to cry anymore when you're drunk.
Yeah.
These were like, you overwhelmed by my emotion.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I am only, able to let my guard down after I've had a significant quantity of alcohol.
Yeah.
And because, this guy, he was not comfortable letting it out at any other circumstance until he drank enough to the point where he couldn't keep it in anymore.
Yeah.
And then he would cry about it.
Yeah.
And whatever it was, his relationships or his stress or whatever it was, I can't acknowledge that any of these things are a problem until I've had enough to drink where I can't stop myself from acknowledging that these things are a problem.
Do you think it talks to what he mentions here, a lot of the pressure that we feel as men to, or where there's some sort of perception that it is shameful or to express our emotions? So maybe do you think he was embarrassed or too scared or felt like he'd be judged by expressing his emotions? It wasn't just,
it was that certain, but then also, okay, well, if I get, just on the edge of being blacked out, then, the accountability for expressing my emotions goes away because I might not remember it.
Yeah. Look, we
just say,
with courage,
drunk, or the inhibitions will,
yeah.
And so, if you can just live with and express and understand your emotions a little bit on a daily basis, then you would not have to deal with all the kinds of challenges. And getting drunk and crying isn't the only way that is expressed, but there's lots of ways that the idea is I've got to keep this tamped down because I can't let anybody see any of these things, because if they do, then fill in the blank.
I'm not a man.
Right. And so if you can be a man on a daily basis who understands his emotions, expresses emotions, and lives with his emotions, then you're not going to have these buildups to either resentment or anger or, punching holes in the drywall or crying every time you have a few too many drinks or whatever. But just bottling it up and never having to deal with it ever is not an option. Or just the biology and the psychology just doesn't exist for us to just decide not to have unpleasant feelings or emotions that have to be dealt with.
Yeah, I think Youngblood does a really good job in chapter 9 here about flipping the script on the interpretation of what is masculine in terms of in terms of emotions, right? He does a lot of, he frames things in a lot of ways that really helps us understand it's actually masculine to be able to show your emotions in the right way, right? And to the right people, right?
Yeah.
And why that is, and that shows true strength and that's what actually is masculine. And hiding your emotions and basically bottling them up is the exact opposite of that. There was something he said in here that was really good that I wrote down. He said that any emotion we choose not to feel will have to be felt by those around us. So there's no way you're keeping it back from anybody anyway. You're not, and especially not from women who they live in those emotions, like they are experts at feeling it. but other guys will feel it as well. Like we're not that good at hiding it from anybody.
Correct. And what is, in any sense of the word masculine, what is masculine about saying this is too hard for me to handle, so I'm going to make it somebody else's problem?
Exactly.
I mean,
Great point.
yeah, think about,
I can handle it. Right.
yeah, think about any circumstance where the masculine thing to do is to say, this is too hard for me to deal with. So without asking for help, I'll just push this mess onto somebody else's table and let them clean it up because I can't handle cleaning it up myself. I mean, there's no masculinity there. That's weakness.
In that area where he's talking about, it's going to be felt by those around us. He also mentions that it's going to be painful to those around you too, to see these aren't happy emotions that you're tamping down. Right. And so if you think about it this way, we're, as humans, we're, constantly worried about what other people think of us. Now think about this, right? You are literally burdening other people around you, most likely the people that you care about the most,
Sure.
with these emotions, because you're saying, I'm choosing not to deal with them. I'm going to tamp them down, and I'm going to, I'm not going to acknowledge them. I'm not going to be aware of them, and I'm not going to practice handling them. And now you're putting that burden on the people around you. And that's not really fair,
Yeah, I think that yes, it doesn't take a lot for me to say or understand that, the strongest choice we can make in our relationships is to be honest and to be vulnerable with people, because what that communicates is I'm going to speak the truth, and no matter how the world reacts to it, I can handle it. I'm strong enough to deal with it. And so when that comes to emotions, it's like, and he made a great example in the book of how we say, I'm feeling angry right now because fill in the blank is important to me, and fill in the blank isn't going the way that I feel like it ought to. So here's how it scares me, and here's what I think we need to do about it. And your partner could say, or whoever could say, well, I don't think that is important. I don't think we do need to do anything about it. I think things are fine the way they are. The strong person can hear that. The strong man can hear that and say, okay, well, we're not aligned on this. And now we have to have a conversation about, if we never get aligned on this, what does that mean for the future? And no matter what it means for the future, I'll be okay. I'll survive. You'll be okay. You'll survive. But it's going to be difficult for us to work this out. And I remember what I was trying to come up with was this idea that, sort of going back to the previous chapter 8, about threat, and how, unmasculine behavior is almost always, at least for people who strive to be masculine in any kind of a healthy or responsible way, the feeling of threat, the feeling of scarcity, the feeling of I might not be okay, I might not be up for dealing with this, I might not be able to recover from this bad thing that could happen to me. Throughout human history, that masculine anxiety, that masculine threat has been possibly the biggest lever that the people in charge or in power have used to get what they want. Like, I am going to make you scared of this other country or this other kind of people or this. And so as a result, now I need you to pick up a bayonet and go fight this war for me. That's honestly about my power and my wealth, but I'm going to frame it as,
it's a threat to you.
Yeah, they're out to get you, and if you don't go kill them first, then they're going to kill you, and they're going to take your wife and your kids and everything that matters to you. They're going to steal that from you. So you have to go fight them first. And it's just, yeah, we have been exploited by that ability for people to make us feel threatened to get what they want from us. So what's the inoculation against that? What's the vaccine against that? Well, it's work on yourself to the point where you subject yourself to difficult things and you triumph over those difficult things, so that when somebody comes along and says, "Oof, you're in real danger, you're in real trouble, you better listen to me or else something bad could happen," your attitude should be like, I think I'm doing okay, and I can kind of deal with whatever comes along. So I'm not going to just listen to you and go do what you tell me to do because I'm scared.
Yeah. And that's the opportunity then, if you're not swept up in the emotions at the time and you start reacting to them, you can then ask questions. You can get more information. Maybe there really is a threat.
Right.
But just because somebody says so, not likely.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's in it for them if I believe them?
That's a great question to ask.
If I believe what they're telling me and I do what they say I have to do, how do they benefit from it? And, again, if you're constantly in a state of fear, if you're afraid of you know, I I mean, and part of that comes from a level of uncertainty and scarcity, like I said before, of I'm not sure I deserve the life that I have. I'm not sure I've actually earned it. I'm not sure I'm good enough to enjoy this house, this wife, this kids that I've got. So because I don't believe that maybe I didn't earn all this stuff. Maybe
Or
I'm
maybe he's making you feel guilty,
right.
even though you did earn it all.
Right. Yeah, then it's like, some circumstance could happen where it's all taken away from me and I don't have the power or the control to keep it. Then it's like, all right, now it's time for now
Yeah.
get ready to be manipulated. And I used to put it in terms of the person who is easily offended is easily controlled. Because if all it takes is for you to hear somebody make some noises with their mouth that really just sets you off and gets you out of responsive mode and into reactive mode, then it's very easy for them to get what they want or need out of you, and you have very little control to stop it. Where if you're able to just say, that person, they can say whatever they want to say, that doesn't really affect me, then it's a lot harder for them to put you in the place they need to put you to get what they want to take from you. And I see it a lot right now with some of the struggles that men go through in our social and political and media climate, where it's like, okay, if this CEO, if this politician, if this religious leader can just get you scared enough that he'll just do what he tells you to do because you want to protect yourself and your resources and the things you care about, and you'll just go into that reactive mode as soon as that person says the right thing to you.
One of the things I liked that he brought up was the different thoughts about anger and how a lot of times in society, men are criticized for being too angry, but then they're also criticized for letting people walk all over them and not showing any type of backbone or any type of anger at all. And he explained it in a really nice way that resonated with me, which is that it's okay to be angry, but then when you are communicating your feelings, don't make that the primary emotion that you're expressing, right? It's okay to be angry, but then look deeper. That's a sign of something else that you're feeling on the inside. Most likely you're scared of something.
Right.
So lead with the thing that is actually internally scaring you. You can say and label, yes, I'm angry because I feel scared that you don't value this relationship. So
Right.
I think the example was, a guy was with a woman who she was always late.
Yeah, so and I'm afraid that you don't value my time, which means you don't value the relationship, because I do what I have to do with my calendar, my schedule to be there for you when we plan something. And the fact that you don't frightens me into thinking that you just don't care as much as I do.
Yeah. And he really dissected breaking down a good way of communicating that so that you're not judging or necessarily blaming the other person. Really focus on the facts of what happened. So it's when you're late, that's a you can't,
we both agree I was late.
You can't argue that, right? Yeah, that you were late, right?
Agreed to be here at 10.
When you're late,
10:20,
and
that's
then
an objective fact that nobody can argue with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other objective thing that somebody can't argue with is, as long as you're honest, is your feelings and how you felt because of that situation. And so if you stick to just the facts, ma'am, you say, okay, you were late and I felt disappointed that you didn't value, I felt like you didn't value my time. You didn't value the relationship. You don't value me, and not, you did this or you did that, or
Right.
You're a bad person, and you're not using any of those types of words. And if you can stick to just reporting on the facts, there's no arguing there. And then the important thing too is leaving it there so that you don't need them to change. It's okay to want them to change, but you don't need them to change.
No,
you don't go in with the expectation that they are absolutely, they have to change at this point, right?
You can, enough. It can be enough to just say, hey, when this happens, this is the way I feel. And then if this is a person who loves and cares about you, then that will matter to them.
Correct.
But yeah, you can, there's a loving way to walk them through it, to say, okay, we both agreed to meet at 10 and you showed up at 10:20, right? I'm not making a lie up. You did show up 20 minutes late, right? And a sane person is going to say, yes, I did. And they may try to offer excuses. They may try to offer, like, I completely understand that, but we did agree at 10. You showed up at 10:20. Now here's how I feel about it. Do you believe me? I'm telling you the truth about how I feel, or do you think I'm making that up?
Yeah.
And again, most sane people is like, no, I believe, you say that made you feel frustrated or neglected or whatever. I believe that you experienced that. It's like, okay, so we agree what happened. We agree how Charles felt about it. I feel better just getting that off my chest.
Yeah.
The fact that we
Yeah.
just agree on that much, I already feel better.
Right. Because you feel like they then, by her reiterating it to you also helps you feel like, yeah, she does understand. Right. For me, that's huge, is knowing that the other person for me, that's more than anything else, is I just want to feel like I've been heard and that you understand.
And that conversation may lead to a place of, well, what can I do to make you feel better? It may lead to, I could use your advice. You're always on time for stuff. How do you do it? Because maybe you got something to teach me about how to show up on time. But don't count on it, and don't be mad if it doesn't go there. But it could, if you handle it the right way from your half of the conversation, it's very much more possible that those follow-ups could happen.
And think about how you're going to feel afterwards if you handle it in that way and you don't let the emotions, some of your emotions usually, get the best of you. I would look back and be like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I handled that, and I was in control the entire time.
And even if she changes nothing, you get to walk away and feel like, all right, I'm the kind of guy that when something bothers me, I'm able to express it in the healthy way. And there will be people in the world who respond in kind. There will be people in the world who don't give a shit. But as long as I keeping my side of the street clean when it comes to these kinds of conversations, I'm going to have a better life in the long run.
And I think it's actually, if you're right with the right person, it's going to bring you closer together.
Yeah.
It's just another way for them to understand you more, right? And get a better appreciation of what's important to you. You are exposing who you really are to that person, and, showing that authentic vulnerability by expressing how you're actually feeling and not either tamping it down, pretending it doesn't bother you, right? That emotional stoicism, which never works, and showing strength by saying, hey, I'm putting myself out here and I'm putting my true feelings out here. And that's a display of strength. So this is like win, 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 win.
Yeah. And it also helps to always, try. And one thing I think, we struggle with as men is, like you said, anger is a tough one for the way we interact with society, because it's usually one of two things. It's either you never get to display anger, or the only thing that we will accept, the only emotion we will accept from men. Really, there's a couple. You can lust, anger, and possibly a third of irreverence. You could be angry, at least in the company of many other men, if not all. You can say things that are lustful, and you can sometimes, just kind of make a joke about something serious. And usually those three will kind of be met with the approval of your peers. But again, in some other circumstances, it's like, no, men can't show anger because angry men have caused lots of trouble for people in the past. And so we're just going to decide we're uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when we notice the anger, it's because it's out of control.
Right.
And so I think our interpretation of what anger is already skewed.
And I think part of that is because in many cases, anger is a secondary emotion. Anger happens as a result of, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm afraid, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm grieving something. And so all of those feel in our body more complex than anger does. Anger is easy. It bubbles up to the top and it's like, oh, that guy's angry. Where, to then have a conversation with somebody to say, listen, I know I'm coming across really angry right now, but I'm not actually angry. I'm just grieving a huge loss, and I'm having a hard time with it.
Right. So here's a question then. What do you think is more effective? Handling the anger piece, or handling the grieving of the loss, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll just keep that anger out there and we don't want to show anything else. So yeah, maybe we resolve that anger, it goes away, but that doesn't fix the root of the problem.
Correct.
And that could easily spawn itself again at another time. And then I think we just get into these patterns of hey, well, that's just a comfortable pattern that we do, is we resolve the anger, but we never get to the root of the problem. And so it's not really that effective.
I like these 3 chapters. I definitely did learn some new things that I had never learned or heard before. The main thing being the role of feminine as oracle. Like, have this woman in your life and she will show you where the holes in your game are. And to keep her safe and around, you got to fix them. And that's challenging. There's a lot. And I think that's why so many men, younger men especially, are just kind of checking out of the relationship scene, because that is a big demand to put on yourself, to say, I'm going to put this person in my life. I'm going to show them who I really am, and all my flaws are going to boil to the surface, and that's really uncomfortable. So I'll just stay alone, masturbating in my basement instead. And I'm not making that choice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys out there that are making that choice because they've just done the math for them. They think it's easier that way. And it's easier, but it's also easier to just, get into a medically induced coma and be on life support until your body ages out and you just pass away. I mean, that's easy.
Know that the reward is greater when you don't take the easy way out.
Yeah, because the thing that people are struggling and not getting done is the thing that's going to have the richest reward, whether that's your health or hiking Everest or getting in a healthy relationship, whatever thing you want that is going to be hard to do. That's what you're going to feel the best about accomplishing. So, all right, next time we will talk on the next 2 or 3 chapters. I forget. And I'm enjoying this book. This guy is, every time I worry that he's going to go into some kind of a cliche, nonsense, he doesn't do it. And I really appreciate that.
Nice.
All right. Talk to you next time, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mindfully Masculine podcast. I hope our conversation today gave you some valuable insights into the roles of the masculine and feminine, the power of polarity, and the root causes of conflict in relationships. If you found something useful here, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend, a partner, or anyone you think could benefit from hearing these ideas. For all past episodes, audio and video, you can visit mindfullymasculine.com. Until next time, take care.